Hello and welcome to Contemplation with A Course in Miracles. And today's episode is all about time. Time is our teacher, and we're going to be exploring the purpose of time, amongst other topics. But we're continuing with the miracle principles, and we're starting from Miracle Principle 7. And I am working from the transcript of the original notes from Helen Schucman's notebook. I'm presenting it in the form of the dialogue between Helen and the voice, rather than in the form of the published, final finished product of the book. So here we go. Miracle Principle 7. Miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. So by everyone's right, he not only means receiving miracles is everyone's right, but performing miracles is everyone's right. And as we noted in the last episode, we don't mean performing miracles in the traditional sense. We mean expressing God's love through our actions, through our thoughts, through our words. And these expressions of love, of the source of love, has some kind of healing outcome in the presence of the lives of those we touch, of those people that we encounter. So that's the sort of description or the definition of a miracle in this context. And when he says purification is necessary first, he means the purification of our thoughts, and we purify our thoughts in collaboration with the Holy Spirit. And what this means is just that only our loving creative thoughts are retained and our unloving fearful thoughts are released. Miracle Principle 8. Miracles are a form of healing. They supply a lack and are performed by those who have more for those who have less. 9. Miracles are a kind of exchange. Like all expressions that emanate from the source of love, which are always miraculous in the true sense, the exchange reverses the physical laws. A miracle is a reversal of the physical order because it brings more love to the giver and to the receiver. Principle 11. A miracle is misunderstood when it's regarded as a spectacle. The use of miracles as a spectacle to induce belief is wrong. Miracles are really used for and by those who already believe. Helen writes here that she has some fear about Miracle Principle 11, that the use of miracles to induce belief is wrong. And she has some doubts about Miracle Principle 9, that miracles can reverse physical laws. And also some doubt about Miracle Principle 10, that miracles bring more love to the giver as well as the receiver. She writes, Miracle Principle 11 makes me nervous, and 9 and 10 were very hard to arrange. I think I understand that as I should, but I'm not sure. I don't think Bill wants this course. Bill is her colleague. And I'm not sure I want this course either. He is very snappy. The author, the voice, replies to her, I think this is slightly true because something is bothering him. But he certainly isn't very snappy. So why not try to help him instead of blowing it up into an obstruction? He helps you all the time. Helen's note says, I resent this. He's supposed to help me. Note, I don't always feel this way. It's a danger signal now, and just means something's wrong. Anyway, presumably this course is an elective. The voice replies, No, it isn't an elective. It's a definite requirement. Only the time you take the course is voluntary. Free will doesn't mean you establish the curriculum of this course. It only means you elect what to take when. It's just because you're not ready to do what you should elect to do that time exists at all. So here is one of our pointers about time. The only reason time exists is because we're not ready. Time is for the unready. So Helen records several dreams in her notebooks, and some of them aren't relevant to the course at all, but I'm going to retell two of them here because they do have relevance in relation to Jesus' references to her other lifetimes and the associated guilt or mistakes she made in relation to children or people under her care during these lives. And I think that has a wider relevance for us as well in terms of the guilt that we feel when we feel that we've let people down or that we've been let down by those who were responsible for us, those who had a duty of care for us, those who were supposed to be looking after us, and vice versa. So to the dreams. One was of great distress. Esther left Amy with us. The us is ambiguous. And we were stuck. I was very tired after an incredible day in which a lot of stress was involved and wanted to go to sleep but couldn't on account of Amy. I was trying not to get angry at Esther because I think I was aware that she had a very good reason for having to go away just then, and I should help her. There was also one dream in which three animals, little ones, were in the same room, and I knew that I had to keep them apart because they hated each other. Being so busy, this was a great additional strain on me. One of them was pregnant, and the other two animals wanted to kill her. But the other two also hated each other too. Oddly enough, I was quite sorry for all of them, because they were all three mixed up, but in different ways. I felt I had to get the pregnant one out first, though, because of the child. I thought this an improvement on the recurring dream I had for years about animals starving to death, and me sometimes grieving, sometimes trying desperately to help them, at times also realizing I had starved them and feeling very guilty, but never saving them. So moving back to the dictated notes, the author says, everybody makes mistakes. These errors are completely trivial. Tell Bill that when the past has been forgiven, these minor infractions are very easily altered. Miracle Principle 12. Prayer is the medium of miracles. Prayer is the natural communication between the created and the creator. Through prayer, love is received from the source, and through miracles, love is expressed by the source. Miracles are thought creations. Thought can create lower order or higher order realities. So, our vehicle for creation is the mind, and the means of creation is thought. Everything comes from thought. So, thought can create lower order or higher order realities. This is the basic distinction between intellectualization and thinking. So, by intellectualization, he's talking about a defense mechanism that we use to avoid uncomfortable feelings and situations. So, what we do is we overanalyze, we dissect, we ruminate, we ponder, we try to figure things out logically. But this is a defense mechanism to stop us from feeling pain or guilt. It's a sort of distraction, an avoidance strategy. With regards to thought, he says, one form of thinking creates the physical and the other the spiritual, and we believe in what we create. Miracle Principle 14. A miracle is a beginning and an ending, and thus abolishes time. A miracle is always an affirmation of rebirth, which seems to go back, but really goes forward by undoing the past in the present, and thus releasing the future. So what he's saying there is that a miracle undoes the pain of the past or the errors of the past in the present, in the now. And in so doing, it frees the future from bearing the burden of these past errors or the risk of them being repeated and being perpetuated or exacerbated on and on into the future. So a miracle cancels out past pain by creating a sort of loving, healing outcome in the present. Every miracle attests to truth. By truth, it means absolute reality or infinity. Miracles are convincing because they arise from conviction. Without conviction, miracles deteriorate into superstition, which is mindless and therefore destructive, or rather, the uncreative use of mind. And as I said earlier, mind has a different meaning in A Course in Miracles. Mind is creative power and creative energy. This is what it says in the clarification of terms in A Course in Miracles. It's meant to supply creative energy to spirit, but often it supplies creative energy in order to manifest the dictates, the beliefs and expectations of the ego. Miracle Principle 16, each day should be devoted to miracles. In other words, each day should be devoted to being an instrument for expressing the will of the source of love. And then in brackets it says, God created time so that man could use it creatively and convince himself of his own ability to create. And once again, we create through our thoughts. Time is a teaching device and a means to an end. Time will cease when it is no longer useful in facilitating learning. So, 2 points here. Time is our teacher. This is a vehicle for us to learn lessons while we're in Earth School. Everything in this world of perception is a teaching device. The world itself that we perceive is a teaching device. Our body is a teaching and a communication device. And time is another teaching device, a means of learning. And to the point that time will cease when it's no longer useful in facilitating learning. This isn't as sinister as it sounds. You always associate the end of time with Armageddon, war, death, scenes from the Book of Revelation, catastrophe, plagues, etc. A bit like what's going on now. But in A Course in Miracles, with time being a teacher, it means when you've learnt your lessons, when you've learnt everything that you need to learn at a certain level, you don't need that specific teacher anymore, and you move on to another teacher. And time being a teacher, when we don't need to learn the lessons that we need to learn through the vehicle of time, that teacher will no longer be necessary. And the end of time in this context means the end of war, the end of pain, the end of misery, the end of suffering, because these are all facets, factors, learning devices, lessons that we need to learn while we are in the time-space illusion. So the end of time should be equated with the end of sorrow and not with catastrophe. Special instructions. Notes on this course have to be taken only under good learning conditions and should be reviewed. The scribe makes the note, I was going to write refused instead of reviewed. The author continues, the same goes for review periods. I'll tell you when, but remember to ask. Miracle Principle 17. Miracles are teaching devices for demonstrating that it's more blessed to give than to receive. Miracles simultaneously increase the reserve strength of the giver and supply the lack of strength in the receiver. So here we see that the emphasis in A Course in Miracles is not really about receiving miracles, it's more about giving miracles, how to give miracles. But in the giving, you do receive as well, because they increase the strength of both the giver and the receiver. He writes, be very careful in interpreting this. And then Helen, the scribe, writes, regarding Wally's chalice, Does this mean he's on my list? So, Wally is a friend of her colleague, Bill, and Helen describes Wally as a real menace to her. It seems at one point that Wally wants her forgiveness and wants to give her a necklace. Helen is hesitant to accept the necklace because she knows it would be interpreted as a sign of the forgiveness, which she says, quote unquote, he needs so much. And she said, regarding Wally's chalice, does this mean he's on my list? So the chalice she's referring to is the chalice of atonement, and it's a symbol of opportunity to accept forgiveness or give forgiveness. So she wants to know if Wally is on her list, and the voice replies, not necessarily, only that you of all people should know that it frightens people if you hand them back their own chalice. Whether Wally is on your list or not depends on a three-way readiness. And remember that I said earlier that time is for the unready. Time is here to help us to get ready. And Jesus says, I am always ready. Almost like saying I was born ready. Your job is to take care of your readiness, he says. Wally's readiness is up to him. At present, he's a potential candidate, but Amy is on the list now. She's a child you hurt. And I'm presuming he means that Amy is a child that Helen hurt in a previous or other lifetime. And if you recall, Amy is the child that she dreamt about, that she had to babysit in the dream. He continues, the whole problem is that Amy and Wally threw the chalice away and are denying it, therefore they are now afraid of it. This should cause you no trouble at all in understanding. You and Bill have an identification problem which makes you both unstable but in different ways. Bill lacks confidence in his identification and needs to strengthen it. You vacillate in your identification and need better control. Both of you needn't worry. You must love the children and help them. You have hated them and hurt them in past lives, presumably, I think he means. So I'll say that again. You have hated them and hurt them, but remember, Ezra, that you once loved them very much. And Ezra, people believe, is a reference to Ezra the scribe in the Old Testament Bible, which some people believe is a possible past life of Helen's. And Ezra is called Azra in the Aramaic Bible, and that is the name that he used to address her there, Azra, the Aramaic form. And scholars, of course, believe that Jesus' native language was Aramaic. So Ezra led 5,000 exiled Jews from Babylon to Jerusalem in a similar role to Moses. So in calling her Ezra, he appears to be reminding her of a time when she loved the children or the charges that she was responsible for and took care of them. He says, you were a child of light. Forget the interval of darkness and be what you were. The child of light is your real self. Chip's story triggered the memory of your abandonment of the children, guilt, and a fear of God's abandonment as justice. I told you I forgave you, and that meant all hurt and hate you have ever experienced is cancelled. That's what the atonement means in A Course in Miracles, that all hate and hurt that we have ever experienced, which means when we've hurt others or hated others, or when we have been hurt by others and been hated by others, all of that is cancelled. The results, the consequences is cancelled by the miracle of the atonement. He continues, I need the children of light now, and I am calling you to be what you once were and must be again. The interval of darkness has vanished without a trace anywhere. You who lived so close to God must not give way to guilt. Karmic law demands abandonment for abandoning, but you have received mercy, not justice. Help the children because you love them and because you love the giver of life. And I'm going to conclude with a story. He mentioned Chip's story, and in Helen's earlier notes, she says that Chip's real name is Charles. There is a person called Charles Parrish who spoke about how Helen helped him in the documentary The Forgotten Song. I don't know whether it may be a different Charles, but anyway, I'm going to tell the story here as an example of a miracle in the context that we're talking about miracles, an expression of love that has a healing outcome. So Charles Parrish says in the Forgotten Song documentary, I was having some difficulties, largely with family matters, and so Helen kindly counselled me. And in the course of this dialogue, a very kind exchange, she discovered that I had been separated from my mother for some 14 years. I really wasn't quite sure where she was, and it turned out that she was institutionalized. And within half an hour of the next day, Helen located, through some contacts in the State Department of Mental Health, New York State, found where my mother was lodged, and had spoken to the physician in charge of my mother, and the following Sunday arranged for me to visit. And with Helen's support and help, I was able to re-establish a very loving relationship with my mother, first as a friend, and then as a loving son. And it was so typical of Helen's concern. So I think that is a nice note to end on. Also, the reminder that all hurt and hate we have ever experienced, either to us or from us, is cancelled by the atonement, the gift of healing grace. But the only thing that remains for us is to receive the chalice of atonement, which is a symbol of accepting forgiveness. And then we will experience the cancellation of this hurt and hate. But until we accept this chalice of atonement, this chalice of forgiveness, you probably will continue to feel the hurt and the hate and all the results and consequences of actions done to us by others or actions we've done to others that hurt them. So let us contemplate the idea, the challenge of accepting forgiveness for ourselves, self-forgiveness. As he says, you who lived so close to God must not give way to guilt. We have received mercy, not justice. Okay, so that's all for today's episode. Until the next time.